Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. I hope you all had a great Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And, well, thank you for all that you do, moms. Greatly appreciated. And it's going to be another crazy week this week, just kind of more of the norm, right? The big thing is going to be on Wednesday with CPI. Matter of fact, Morgan Stanley out now saying, oh, yeah, we're going to get one of these fake low numbers when it comes to the Federal Reserve. We'll see. I mean, we don't know. But right now, that is what Wall Street is anticipating. We'll watch to see. Friday, remember we had this big gap up in gold. Really nice today. They closed the gap. You always want to close. Why? Because computers do all the trading. I mean, let's be honest. They don't like gaps. So right now, gold's down 30, 23.44. It was all the way down to 23.40. That's where it was before the gap up. And again, I think if this low core inflation number, it's going to be a core number that's going to be low, something to do with shelter and, some academic way. This is how you know they don't actually track inflation. They should stop even saying that they're tracking inflation because that's not what they're doing. But we'll wait and see for that on Wednesday. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. And, we've heard, it just seems like everybody, time after time after time, Jason, warning about, deficits, countries starting to turn away from the dollar. And then over the weekend, Goldman Sachs came out and said central bank purchases, which have been off the charts, are actually much higher than what is being reported. And it's interesting because I was telling Jason this earlier. I go, central banks are now kind of being like, because I always tell all of our listeners, be your own central bank, right? Be your own central bank. Right? If they're buying gold, they're telling you. Listen, there's not a greater clue to, hey, how's the fiat money system doing than what central banks are doing. Because let's face it, as we are the quote-unquote leader of the fiat money system, this really has to do a lot more with us and watching what they're doing. But I always tell you, hey, do it privately. Right? Be as private as possible. That's why we say, why do we like pre-33 gold? What's the matter with gold bars? What's the matter with gold eagles? What's the matter with Chinese pandas, Krugerrands, maple leafs? Nothing. Nothing wrong with it. It's still gold. Just can't be as private. What do you mean private? Well, you want something that you can buy, sell, and trade and not have to worry about 1099s. That there's only one thing that fits that. And now there's legislation afoot to maybe possibly, hopefully, maybe change that. We'll see. I don't know. But at least one person in Congress wants to get rid of all the taxes on gold and silver. We'll see. That's not the rule yet, but we'll see. But privacy, back to my story, privacy. Why would central banks buy gold and then not tell anybody? It's kind of funny that they don't have to say it. Right? When central banks kind of report their holdings, they say, like, we got this many treasuries and we got this many mortgage-backed securities. And, of course, we have 8,000 tons of gold. Allegedly, we don't audit it. But central banks don't have to tell, Jason, if they don't want to. And Goldman Sachs is now saying that the vast majority of purchases are being made and unreported by these central banks. I can't hear you. Yeah, no. Jason's dead in the water. All right. Well, we'll work on it. See if we can get Jason back with us here. Oh, it's Monday. We always got to have, we had that big solar flare storm. There you go. Now you're back. Okay. Yes. I was just getting ready to blame it on the solar flare, but you're back now.
There was a button that I never press on this thing, and it was pressed down. So it took me right off, took my mic right off. So, but no, you're talking about central banks buying gold and not reporting it, and not a surprise. I mean, there's a lot of things central banks don't report really when it comes down to it, especially what they're actually doing. Like when they print $29 trillion instead of printing $5 trillion back in 2010, right? So it's not surprising. They want to be private, and as you mentioned earlier, it's a page out of the Chinese. China doesn't want to tell you how much they have. None of these countries really want to tell you how much they have, but they also want to tell you that they got a lot too. Isn't it funny how all these central banks really want to tell you they have it? Because it makes them feel a little more cozy that, okay, well, the other guys are doing it too, so I think we're doing the right thing. But nobody wants to say how much they got, but they all want to tell you they got it, so they all feel good about themselves because they probably don't really understand gold the way we do, Joe, and so they probably think it's a big risk. But it's pretty obvious why they're doing it. It's a flight to safety.
Yeah, it reminds me of the South Korean central bank with their announcement of how much they hate gold, and then all of a sudden, but we're going to be adding to our gold holdings in the near future anyway. Well, maybe they're one of the countries that's already been adding, and we're just finding out about it. We'll tell you more when we get back. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason on this Monday. Inflation expectations on housing cost is going to be the big determiner. So we've had Goldman Sachs and we've had Morgan Stanley say, get ready, it's going to go down because of housing. Yet when the New York Fed did a survey of consumers, not all that they're talking about, they're all saying, hey, what are you guys talking about this cheap housing? Where is it? Nobody can find it. But it's going to be an interesting deal on Wednesday. Like I said, they don't really track inflation. It's a bunch of nonsense. This is why we're telling you, you've got to be more diversified than ever. At least in recent history. The 87 crash, right? Some of us were older, a little older than remember that one, and kind of, we were all, a little bit shocked on that. Of course, that was kind of the end of Japan. Matter of fact, boy, their currency's in big trouble. By the way, that's another reason, big reason too, by the way. Then the dot-com bubble. Some people started to pay attention a little bit. And then when the financial crisis hit, a lot more people started getting diversified, right? Starting to buy. The financial crisis, all the gold people out there, right? Remember, you guys, we were the crazy ones, right? The crazy aunt, the crazy uncle. Oh, yeah, don't listen to, you have Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, 4th of July, and they're trying to tell you how the cow really eats the cabbage, and don't listen to him. She's crazy. He's crazy, right? His tinfoil helmet wearer, all that stuff. Guess what? That's gone. That's gone. Nobody thinks that now. And you know what's funny? I'm telling you, the next bubble bursting, we're closing in on it. How much time? I don't know. Right? Is it 6 months, 3 months, a year? We don't know. But we know, one thing we know for certain, it's coming. And you need to be more diversified because that's how you end up in the best shape. Right? I mean, If Wall Street's going to lose 20, 30, 40, 50% of its value, well, it would kind of beholden you maybe to have less in it. I don't know, just call me crazy. Right? That's why I keep telling you about our buddies over at Y-Refi. If you have $50,000 or more, you need to check them out. If you want to, hey, I want to take part, not all, don't put all your money. You know, we say this all the time. Can't put all your money in gold and silver. Can't put all your money in the stock market. How, right? Be more diversified this time. You get up to 10.25% fixed rate of return. How nice would it be if Wall Street's down 30% one year, and you're like, hey, you know what, though? I got a little chunk over here I set aside. I got 10 and a quarter. Yeah, thank you very much. Give yourself a self-high five. Check these guys out. They're legit. They're great to deal with. They don't play games. They just tell you how it is. No fees, no attacking principal, none of that. No bait and switch and all that other nonsense. Super high commissions. They'll throw that all in the garbage. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Just make it simple. Just call 888-Y-REFI-24. Now, before the break, we are talking about, and we know, man, look at all the central bank gold buy, right? 2022, 2023, all-time record highs. Never in the history of the planet, since they've been keeping records, have central banks bought so much gold. Listen, they've been buying gold since the financial crisis, and they haven't stopped. And I'll just really quickly, I'll go back to Alan Greenspan, because this was really important. I think this was really the end of the myth that fiat money works. Remember in the late 90s, and mid to late 90s, remember we had a few fake budget surpluses, right? Because the Social Security Trust Fund, blah, 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 with the Clinton era. Alan Greenspan would say, we're going to have the whole national debt paid off by 2010. Don't have to worry about Social Security now. Of course, we weren't supposed to worry about it when you allegedly fixed it in 1983. See how they do things? That's why you ever hear my commercial about Social Security? We're entitled to none of that money, just so everybody knows. The Supreme Court ruled back in the 60s. Social Security is a tax. Government can decide not to give you nothing. And we may be getting there really soon. Okay? But that was the height of central banking, wasn't it? Oh my gosh, look at these guys did it. It's nirvana. We're going to have no debt in a fiat money system. Now, if you know anything about a fiat money system, you would know that would be total nonsense because it requires debt. That's how it works, right? Well, fast forward, right? We're now less than what, about $250 billion away from $35 trillion. Let's not forget the Fed's got 7 plus, right? So it's really 42, but who's counting? And now these central banks, they've been gobbling up gold since the financial crisis. And now all of a sudden, isn't it interesting that really since COVID, these central banks have been on the warpath in gold buying? Matter of fact, there's only one category of gold that's actually down. Right? Central gold buying up. Jewelry demand up. The only thing down is the ETF, a.k.a. paper gold, that the Western banks like to manipulate. Nothing else is down in gold except the ETFs, right? Shockingly, right? Gold's gone from, I don't know, where was gold, Jason, in 2016, 2017?
About $1,250.
About 1,200, right?
$1,250. That was kind of the average.
Not quite doubled, but yet the ETFs aren't buying it. Okay, sure. But according to Goldman now, there's an even bigger issue happening. That global central banks have tripled the amount of their purchases. And Goldman went on to say that further geopolitical and financial shocks are going to drive even more demand. They said, we know about what they call the emerging markets central banks buying gold as a hedge. They're like, hey, we know this. Right? Of course, what are they talking about? Right? They're talking about China. They're talking about India. Right? They're talking about Turkey. They're talking about Russia. Right? This is what they're talking about. And they said that fears of shock to U.S. sovereign debt or other financial dollar systems explains the gold buying very well. So, according to Goldman, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Right? They're talking about U.S. sovereign debt problems. Excuse me? Yeah. They're just saying it out loud now. But then they said there's something interesting that's happening in this gold market. First, noting that only ETF holdings is the only thing that's been plunging. Then they said it has been noted of a significant rise in unreported purchases from global central banks since mid-2022. So what are we talking about, Jason? I guess maybe let's call it the last 2 years. Goldman is saying, hey, we've dug through the data. The numbers don't add up. We know about China, Poland, Turkey, Singapore, India, Qatar, Russia, right? We know about those countries. Unfortunately, when we add up what they said that they've bought, Jason, the numbers don't add up. In 2023, Goldman Sachs said, hey, we went through and looked at, 2023, the second largest year ever in reported central bank sales. And they're saying that number could be possibly, and I don't know that this can be true, but double what was reported. And right now, this year, they're saying what is being reported versus what we're seeing is that it looks like gold purchases from central banks, Jason, could be 3 times higher than what is officially being reported. And it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Why would these central banks not want to tell? And what central banks is it? That's where really we don't know, right? Is it possible that some of our friends, that we'll call them our friends, right? The G7, are they adding to gold? Is it other nations that maybe don't want the dollar to be disrupted just yet, right? Could we see, is Saudi Arabia making a huge push into gold, right? Because they've been real quiet about it. We haven't heard anything about the Saudis in gold purchases. I mean, we know South Korea is saying they're going to start buying, but they've acted like they haven't. Is Japan buying? Jason, these are the things that I think are really telling here. The reason these countries don't want to let it out, in my opinion, I feel like there's really only one reason. We don't want everybody to know how much trouble the fiat money system's in. I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense, doesn't it?
And we don't know what they're doing as a class of, businesses, these central banks across the world, when they secure whatever level of gold they desire. Assets of the debtor can be hypothecated. This means to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it, as a security by the lender or underwriter. The federal this goes with our bank, but I think this goes with all these central banks. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest was to be paid in gold. There is no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. So all these countries have these central banks, Joe. They all have massive unpayable debts. Look at Japan, right? Japan is leveraged worse than anyone, right? And the interest is to be, what happens when you can't pay your interest? Aren't we getting in this country? How many times have we talked about how we're getting to the point where it's going to be almost impossible just to pay the interest on the debt? And now the central banks are loading up on gold. And right there in our bankruptcy of America in 1933, it's right there. It says, look, the interest is to be paid in gold. How do you pay down the interest, Joe? I guess in gold? What would that do with the price if suddenly they just decide to flip it from $20 to $35 like they did in 1934?
Oh, boy. When we get back, Goldman Sachs has a new base case for where the price of gold is going to be. We're coming back next. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. Before we get to Goldman and finding that central bank purchases are significantly more than realized, that how bad is it? How much are they really buying? It really is something where it would just signify how much more stress there really is in the system. It's already at record highs, right? Central bank purchases. I mean, that should be enough. But even Roaring Kitty's back. Yeah, the meme guy. Remember the meme guy? He's back. GameStop was up 40% today, right? That just tells you, hey, get ready. Right, that's another side, right? Roaring Kitty's back. Remember what was that website that they were on? Reddit, right? The Reddit stuff. Yeah, they're back. Of course, remember, they've been, they're big silver guys and gold guys too, right? They know. But now, Goldman says after looking at the official data of purchases, and saying, hey, we know what the mints around the world have bought. We know what the jewelry guys have bought. We know about the investments, right? We know about paper, right? So everything else has to be either central bank or sovereign wealth fund gold buying, period. Because we know all the rest. And it's way more than what they're saying. They said putting all the pieces together, they have a new base case price target for gold. So base case means this is our most likely. This isn't, oh my God, if XYZ happen and this happens and that happens, gold can maybe hit this. No, this is where gold's going. $2,700 before the clock turns to 2025. I mean, you're talking about a $20 gold piece is going to be $3,000.
Yeah.
If not more. Right? That's if we're lucky. And that's just the base case. Right? That's not if there's a shock to the yen. More trouble in the treasury markets, right? No. This is what they just said, listen, this is just based on demand. Period. Today, we have $10 liberties on special, and I've got a good amount of these. I got over $110 Liberties. It's all about price. We've had a nice little. We filled this gap from Friday. Remember was it 2 Fridays ago? Remember I was telling you, hey, we needed to fill this gap, and then of course we did, and then gold shot up here. We needed to fill this gap for Wednesday's CPI number. We did it today. That's a great thing. $10 Liberties. These are the half ounce, 1866 to 1907. I'm going to make it even a little more affordable for people. 1 through 9, not 19, just 1 through 9, $1,295. 10 or more, $1,285. 20 or more, $1,275 today at 800-951-0592. I mean, that's like $2,550. And Goldman saying, hey, listen, gold's going to hit $2,700 before the year ends. And that's if nothing bad happens, Jason, right? That's like, hey, we're just saying that's where it's going just based on demand alone.
And 2,700 by the end of the year, that might fall short. I mean, I think we have another run in June, and I think as we get to the end of each quarter, as slowly but surely we're going to have some sort of a recession somewhere in our future coming, Joe. The month before they have to calculate, the gross national product of each quarter. You could just see a little bit of buying at the end of each quarter. June would be the end of quarter 2 for the second quarter of 2024. July, August, September. You could see the end of September being another rush to buy gold because, people are at the beginning of the show, the big players are buying it. And so the next big players, well, it's the corporations and the corporate entities and some of the smaller central banks around the world. They're going to buy it in certain places. And, would you want to buy it after a bad quarter in the U.S. or would you rather buy it before the bad quarter shows up, right, Joe? So we could see $2,700 gold well before the end of the year.
Well, let me tell you, Goldman wasn't done. They're saying, hey, that's like Goldilocks, right? That's Goldilocks. Then they said, any more U.S. financial sanctions would up our price to $3,130. Yeah, you heard me right. Saying that the United States using the dollar as a weapon is just going to spark even more gold buying. Then they said, by the way, oh, wait a minute. Any more widening of spreads in the Treasury market? Wait till June. I'm just telling you. Wait till you see. Wait till you see what from June through the rest of the year, the debt's going to be on steroids. Hey, that'll take the price instead of $2,700 to $3,080 before the end of the year. And of course, you know what? Thankfully, and I say thankfully, they didn't give a price if both of those things happen. Right? I mean, because I don't think they wanted to, right? I mean, what could it be? 3,400? 3,500? I don't know about the sanctions. We like to use them. I don't know if war's going to spread some more, like, Iran and this and that. It seems to have calmed down for now, but you don't know. But the latter, Treasury spreads, and I know what is coming in Treasury refinancing. And believe me, before the end of the year, Janet Yellen's going to talk about the need to have another one of these special auctions, Jason. All said and done, Goldman is basically saying somewhere between 2,700 and 3,100 is kind of the baseline scenario for gold over the next 6.5, 7 months. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason on this Monday. $10 liberties. Get them while you can before, gosh, I mean, what are we going to be talking about? $1,700, $1,800, $10 gold pieces. I mean, already, you go back to, 8 years ago, you could buy a 20 almost for this price, right? $12.95, 1 through 9. 10 or more, $12.85. 20 or more, $1,275 at 800-951-0592. Just interesting about how much more gold is being bought by central banks than the actual reported number, according to Goldman Sachs. And at the same time today, U.S. consumers say inflation is destroying their pocketbooks. Even McDonald's now saying, hey, we've got to figure out a way to get a meal for $5. They're having trouble, right? Because we know, right, some of their meals now $18, right, for a Big Mac meal. Not in every state, but in these high-price states. By the way, a Big Mac meal used to be $5. Used to be less than $5, but it used to be like $2.99 back when I was a kid. But they're saying that the McDonald's now is working on something, Jason, forget about $1. But we're trying to find a meal that they can get a drink and a fry and a sandwich for $5, and they're having a hard time figuring out how to do it.
About that big, right? It's got to be about that big. Bite-sized burgers for $5, maybe. You get 3 of them. The little tiny ones. That's the only thing they could do. You can't even get fake meat for cheap. You can't do fake meat for $5. So there's nothing they can do. The bread costs a certain amount. I mean, Joe, the packaging seems like it's going to be $5. How are they going to do it, right? Maybe they'll go back to the old styrofoam. Hey, maybe they'll do that. See if McDonald's goes to the cheap. Remember the old styrofoam containers that they had to ecologically get away from? But no, $18, Joe. I've seen what is a Big Mac. I think a Big Mac averages $5.99 across the country just for the Big Mac. I think a quarter pounder is like a little more than that, $6.75. I don't eat that stuff anymore, but it's the McDonald's indicator. It's a cheap food. And when the cheapest food is getting very expensive, it's a huge indication of where the prices of food are going to be. It's, on the Half Empty Cup of Joe on Thursday, we're going to be talking about the price of food with a new guest that comes on. And, it's what are you going to do? Real food costs a lot of money now. They've really hidden American food costs over the decades by cheapening and making food so much, nutrition free to cheapen it, Joe, and there's nowhere else to go. Pretty soon we'll be eating cardboard, right? I mean, where else is there to go?
Here come the bugs, right? Cities and states now starting to panic as they're getting ready for their budgets on July the 1st. The mayor of Chicago now says they need another $1 billion just for teachers. Of course, unfortunately for Chicago and Illinois in general, they don't have any more money. Seattle now saying that they're going to be forced to close 20 elementary schools due to budget constraints. And, here's the other problem. This is happening here, too, like in Scottsdale, these high, where homes are really expensive. Families can't afford to live there. They just can't afford to live there anymore. But Seattle says they've got $100 million deficit just in the schools alone, saying that it's 20 schools and 20 communities that are going to have to wave bye-bye. And, of course, California, who had a $100 billion surplus 2 years ago, turned that into a $73 billion deficit, now says that they're going to have to scrap. They have California said they had 10,000 unfilled openings. All of those are gone. They're saying that the state is collecting less and less tax revenue. They still are short almost $28 billion. They're going to cut $6.7 billion that was set aside for Medicaid patients, cut off health care for 14 disabled migrants, and save $95 million / $500 million headed towards state schools to build new facilities. By the way, they're going to have to close or cut another $32 billion in just the next 2 years. And Jason, I think you're going to start seeing this all over the place, right? States, cities, they're in lots of trouble. All the COVID money's gone. And now all of a sudden, cities and states are going to see big pain coming. Again, the tax man's coming real soon.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while, and right from your McDonald's story to everything else we talk about, the cost is going up. It's getting harder and harder, Joe. So the woes that we talk about financially don't seem to have any. There's no ease. There's no saving people from what's getting ready to happen. It's just going to get harder. And you have to be on top. Really, the only thing that you can do, Joe, is try to get on top of it as soon as you can. And you have to have assets in your possession. You need to save for your future, because it's really not the bills you have to pay today. It's about the bills that might unexpectedly hit you tomorrow, right, Joe? You have to have something saved up and ready for the tough times ahead, Joe.
800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. $10 Liberties, 1 through 9, $12.95. 10 or more, $12.85. 20 or more, $1,275 at 800-951-0592. And Jason, when we start looking at whether it's Goldman Sachs saying, hey, wait a minute, these numbers don't add up. There's a lot more buying than they told us about. Over the weekend, the World Platinum Council just up its deficit. Oh, well, we're going to be short another 100,000 ounces. I think they're now up to almost 500,000 ounces short in platinum. Platinum now back above 1,000. And we talk about it in silver. Now today, orange juice. Yeah, apparently there's not going to be enough OJ out there. Jason, this has just gone into overdrive where having actual physical things is becoming more and more difficult. And now the consumer is telling, according to what they told the New York Fed, inflation's getting worse. But why do I get the feeling that on Wednesday, Jason, they're going to try to tell us it's getting better?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Well, maybe they'll just look at the data some more. Well, I was looking copper and nickel. Yeah, they're still looking at it. Copper and nickel, they're up. Copper's, I think copper might be record high. I don't know. It's up there. And nickel's high.
Copper is skyrocketing right now, and it's starting to get really uncomfortable. Over $10,000 a ton, and now they're saying, hey, 12, 15,000. It is something where, once again, the hard part is this is a tax that it's easy. Like when you fill out your taxes, you see it, right? Okay, this is what I paid, right? You can see it. Inflation's that invisible tax, and there's only one reason why we have it. It's the central bank. We had a system. The founding fathers set up a system that ensured that you wouldn't have inflation, but the bankers hated it so much that they literally rigged the system. And this is why we've got what we've got here today. It really is kind of, you're laughing when in Phoenix you've got condos that they want 650 to up to some places close to $1 million for a condo, right? I mean, this is how outrageous things have really gotten, and now I think we're starting to see it, right? The cracks in the financial well-being, more 401ks being rated. The latest report came out. More and more of that have the average credit card balance out $6,500. That's just crazy. That's the average. So you got how many people are out there are walking around with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more in credit card debt?
And the crash might just be, like we keep saying, slower than we're normally seeing when the markets kind of fall apart in years past. The 87 crash, the dot-com, the 08 housing crash. You know, if people have 2 jobs and 3 jobs, they're going to lose just like they did in those other crashes, Joe, but it's going to be 1 job at a time, isn't it? You know, the slow slip, instead of just fall off the cliff, it's going to be trying to hang on as long as you can before you fall. You know, $6,500 of credit card bills, that's your last hand on the cliff, isn't it?
Yeah, well, guess what? A record now number of Americans say they're going to miss a payment in the next 3 months. Yeah, get that gold put away. Jason and I will be right back.